Three, two, one.
Oh, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Judah Hoover. This guy right over here is Josh Weidman. This is the Build and Grow Real Estate Show. This guy right over here, he's our ant. He's our mascot because we teach people how to be ants, not grasshoppers. If you know the story, the grasshopper played all summer long, and the ant was diligent and saved up. And when winter came, the grasshopper was in trouble. The ant was fine. The ants helped take care of one another. It's not a story about selfishness. It's a story about being prepared and then setting yourself up to be able to take care of other people. The reason we call this the Build and Grow with Real Estate Show is because we think real estate is the best way to earn a living and also build wealth. And we come to you guys 2 or 3 times a week with that content and with that information. I'm a real estate investor and a realtor. My contact information is right up here. You can see Josh's right above him. He is a real estate investor and a hard money lender. And we work together on a number of projects off and on, and we bring those to you guys and tell you all about them. And we've got a really great show for you here today. Josh, what are we talking about, my friend?
Oh my goodness. Today is a story. I'm sorry, man. Today's the story of 3 stories, right? Like we're gonna tell some stories today. It's a pretty exciting day. If you have missed, if you've missed our exciting stories in the past, you can just kick back and jump right in. And you know what? They're all related, and they don't seem to be related at all, right? And it's just interesting. Okay, so I teased this in the description of the show when we put it out. Here's what's important. There's something really, really transformational that's happening in the real estate space right now, and we've touched on it over the past couple weeks in small snippets of stories about, Showing Times is now owned by Zillow, and some other things that have some blowback coming from the different MLSs across the country coming together and developing some technology. Bottom line here is this: what we're going to talk about today and how it ties to real estate is going to blow your mind. And it's a clear path. It seems like a pretty darn clear path to a really transformational shift in real estate.
Let's get into the show content, Josh, and stop teasing and actually start.
All right.
What you're getting dangerously close to doing is giving it all away. So let's go.
I know. What the heck's going on here? There, we got to add this to the screen. There we go. All right. Here's the first story of the day. First story that we're going to tell today is on the personal computer. Judy, you want to start this? You want me to jump in?
Yeah, no, I think it's great because a lot of people don't realize how long ago the first personal computer was invented. We like to think of the U.S. as being the first company that kind of came up with cars and everything like that. Not the case. It was the Germans. Same way with the computer. We like to think it wasn't Ford. It was it was like Daimler. What's that?
Daimler-Benz.
Daimler-Benz, right? Was who invented the car. It wasn't Ford. Same way, it wasn't Steve Jobs and Bill Gates that invented the computer. It was some German dude. Good luck pronouncing his name. And he did it way back before anybody thought he did. It was back in the 30s. If you were to ask the average person when was the computer invented, I would guess that they would probably not only be able to get the decade, I think they would probably be 20 years off. I think you might have some people guess maybe it was invented in the 50s. Yeah. I'm not sure. Before we started doing research for this show, I would have even pegged the 30s. So it was a long time ago.
Yeah. And here's the thing. The technology was there for a programmable computer in the late 30s. But no one really knew how to harness that kind
of. No one knew what to do with
it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so
so there's another similar story, right? Having technology but not knowing what to do with it. Do you know who invented the digital watch? We think of the digital watch as being a very Japanese thing, right? They came out very popular in the in the 80s. The digital watch was actually invented by the Swiss. They figured out that if you take a crystal and you pass a small electrical charge through it, it'll glow. And they figured out that you could do digital readouts this way. But the Swiss were like, well, that's not what a clock is. A clock is, all our fine little mechanisms and everything like that.
Right.
They came out with the technology, but they didn't understand the applications of it and didn't understand how to harness it. And so therefore it sat around and didn't do anything. And the Japanese were like, oh, well, we'll go ahead and knock that off and mass produce it and go from there. Same thing with the computer. It was around for a long time. And it looked different. It was with cards, not actually, electrical.
Right. Well, but the big thing here is that, there's always people, there's always a very, very small portion of the, the population that's interested in new technology to a point where they'll sit there and look at a circuit board, but most people aren't going to get involved until they see the practical application and how it can change their lives. And so for 40 years, essentially nothing happened in the computing industry, but there was a ton going on behind the scenes. And then this guy in 1975, with his partner, and this guy named what's his name?
Bill Gates and Paul Allen.
Yeah, but man, those guys, holy cow! Yeah, they come along and they're like, "Hey, we're going to write computer programming so that people can actually use this big lump on their desk, and normal people can put it into application." And now we have Microsoft, right? And then then we come along with Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who make the actual personal computer, something that people are interested in and is easy to use and intuitive. And then we fast forward till today, so
where computers have totally taken over our life, where we've got more computing power here than what it took to land on the moon. Where here's the other thing. What's so great about disruption and revolutionary technology, and I love pointing this out to conspiracy theorists like you. It's amazing. All of a sudden, everybody has a phone with a camera on it in their pocket at all time. Yeah. If Bigfoot existed, we'd have pictures by now. If aliens existed, somebody would have live tweeted that by now. Somebody would have gone live on their Instagram, and we would have a video of actual going on.
Are you sitting here saying that like the Pentagon releasing this footage of alien life forms flying through our atmosphere is not real?
I think that that's a whole other conversation. However, okay. I think that what's really cool about this is, whenever I do a listing now, 50% of the time, I don't go and take pictures and get them developed and then upload them into the computer system or anything like that. I don't use a separate camera and have to take the card out and shove it in the side of my computer and hope that it fits. And there used to be so much different types of technology and different types of things. Now it's all right here on my phone. If I want to take pictures, I can. If I want to take a video, I can. It all talks to each other. It's all magical. And everything just works. There's times that I'm like, geez, how do I get this file from my computer to my phone or vice versa? And I don't have, the right cable. Oh, that's fine. I'll just send it through the internet. Look at how much commerce happens on the internet. The point is that, and we're just, and think about it. Everyone, phones do a whole lot more than the picture, but that's just one aspect of this. I was supposed to pick up my son the other day, and I can tell that I'm going to be about 10 minutes late because of a car accident. And I just plug into Google, who knows where all traffic is at all times, and I get a whole different map way around, and it's like great. And so I wasn't like a half an hour late. I was only about 10 minutes late, and it was a big thing.
You think about the items that you can just think of off the top of your head, the easy items that you used to have around that are no longer around anymore. Like payphones are one. I was watching The Wire the other night, and it was so funny because they're talking about, oh yeah, we got a wire up on the payphone down at the corner. Like, what are you kidding me? A wire on a payphone, there's not even a payphone around. Right. But that's just one aspect. Like you said, we got a recording studio. We have a video alteration studio. We've got like the ability to change the photographs, to put filters on them, to and that's just real quick off the top. I mean, a calculator. You've got all of these things, and then you have all that technology that you and I don't even think about anymore, that we haven't thought about for so long. We don't even remember what it was like without it unless somebody points it out. It's a total shift. There are things that no longer exist, and the handheld device has eliminated not just products that people sell and buy, but it's eliminated entire industries in some cases.
It's eliminated entire industries. It's eliminated entire service and segments of the economy. I think that instead of calling it a phone, I think we should start calling them hand terminals, because that's much more what they are. It's a very sci-fi type thing. I think
Yeah.
I think everyone should just start calling them hand terminals.
That's right. So now, listen. Now that's our first story for the day. You got this device that's created. It's transformed everything. It took a little bit of time to get going, but once it did, man, it changed the world in just a few blinks of the eye. Our story number 2 is about Tom and Mary buying a house, and this is important for context. I think if you are involved in real estate, you probably know this story. You probably even know Tom and Mary. You might be Tom and Mary, right? But it all starts
2021. You could be Tom and Mary.
Yeah.
Who's to say you can't?
You could be Tom and Tom. You could be Tom and Tom or Mary and Mary. But for this case study, Tom and Mary decide, hey, listen, we're going to buy a house. We want to go out and get a house, and so they start by saving for a down payment. And this might mean that each of them are going out and they're working a little harder. They might get a second job, but then they're taking that money down to the bank and they're putting that money in the bank, and they're saving up that money month after month after month. And finally they got enough for the down payment. And so what's their next step? They got to go out and get a loan. So what do? Oh my gracious, of course. These calls always come during the show, right?
What phone is that, Josh Weidman?
I know. It's not even a phone. It's not even physical. It's on my desktop. It's a
it sounds really, really good, like one of those old desktop phones. That's why your phone always rings, and that's why that doesn't shock me or surprise me at all. You have never, in a year and a half of us doing this show, figured out that we do a show at noon and you should mute your phone. That's fine. What shocks me is how realistic that was to old technology that we were just talking about. That sounded like a payphone.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So
Tom and Mary go out and find a house.
Yeah.
They
just said they're going to buy a house, but like, what happens when you're buying a house? You know this loan process better than I do. What do you need? Everything, right?
Yep. The first thing you got to do is put together a whole package of information. 2 most recent years of tax returns, 2 most recent W-2s, 2 months worth of bank statements, a month worth of pay stubs, photocopy front and back of both your driver's license and your social security card, who it is in HR that people have to talk to. You've got to call an appraiser to go out there and
we're not even they haven't even found a house, right?
Right. So you got it. Yeah, right.
So now they got to go find a house. And they're going out and they're looking for an agent. In today's day and age, look, you can't help but find an agent that you know. But you really want to find one that's good and going to find you the house and fight for you and, call you to Hoover if you need to, if you need somebody like that. But listen, they go out and they find a house. They're going to hire an agent who's going to take them all over the place and show them a bunch of properties that fit their needs and their wants. And then you're going to put together an offer. And that offer is going to include that pre-approval letter. It's going to include a negotiation, like the start of the negotiation, the terms that you want to pay for the place, how much, all that kind of stuff. And you're ready to go. Tom and Mary are ready to buy this house. Seller comes back. They give some counters. Finally, they have a contract. Now it's time to get ready to go to closing, right? We finally have a contract, but it's the beginning of the process. So now we got to order insurance and get a quote on that. We're going to have to get a title insurance policy. We're going to have to get the home inspected. And then we're going to have to go negotiate after those inspections come in if there's anything that pops up, right? So all of this stuff is happening. There's a lot of moving pieces.
Well, I'm writing and shooting and putting together a course. One of the things that I'm thinking about doing is showing not a Venn diagram, but something like that. Just all the different pieces that there are associated, because we think of buyer and seller, but then there's also the realtor for each of them. And then there's also the insurance company that you're going to use. And then there's people say, well, there's a title company. Well, yeah, but not only is there a title company, but the title company hires a third party searcher to actually be the one to go. They outsource some of that work. And the searcher is the one who actually goes down to the courthouse and opens up the legal books to see who owns this property. And there's just all of these dozens of people involved in a transaction, and they all are worried about, is this transaction going to happen? Because some people get paid up front, some people only get paid if it closes. They all have to do their job. If they don't all do their job in the right order, in a timely manner, then the closing can get pushed back. It's a lot of work. People always say, why does it take 30 days to close a house? Well, it takes 30 days to close a house because it takes 30 days. If we could do it in 15, we would. But it's so complicated, and there's so many people involved that this is how long it takes to close a house.
And Judah, the crazy part is we didn't even talk about after the closing, when they wanted to get the house painted and they needed a new roof and they were moving and all the other stuff that goes along with it. This is just the basic transaction to make sure to find a property and purchase it. It's like to find a seller and have a buyer. Both are willingly entering into the transaction, and it takes a dozen people to get it done. It's pretty staggering, right? Yep. Now we move to story number 3. All right. Story number 3 is the story of the non-fungible token. We have brought this up before. I think this is a hilarious name. And so, it's kind of
the reason it's fungible. The reason it's fungible is, listen, because anybody who's on, let's say you're on child support. Let's say you're paying child support to somebody, right? Or you're getting child support. It's usually husbands that, ex-husbands that pay child support. They give the ex-wife, let's say, $500 a month. And then that ex-wife all of a sudden can buy nicer clothes, or is, going out to eat a little bit more or whatever. And the husband's like, hey, that money is supposed to be going towards shoes and haircuts and things like that. What are you doing here? And the wife doesn't understand the term fungible, but her budget is fungible. See, she has an extra $500 coming in, and she uses that money to do stuff for the kids, but it also frees up this other $500 that she had in her budget. So fungible is usually used in terms of currency, because a dollar can be used for this purpose or this purpose. It can go a bunch of different ways. And if you get money in, even if it's earmarked for a specific thing, it frees up other money for other things.
Yeah.
But a non-fungible is something that is specifically dedicated for that and doesn't free anything else up or affect anything else. It is only for this. An example of something that's non-fungible. Go ahead.
Well, the key difference here is interchangeability.
Right.
If you think of Bitcoin, that is a fungible asset. It is easily interchangeable and replaced by another Bitcoin. They're the same thing. They have the same value. Whereas the non-fungible tokens are tokens for unique, non-interchangeable items. So a piece of art, even a piece of digital art, a tweet. The first tweet, was sold for like $2 million recently. These are non-fungible tokens because they are unique and not interchangeable, right?
Right.
Well, so here's why.
Think of them as, the term non-fungible token could just as easily be non-interchangeable, anti-flexible medallion.
Right.
It's the word token isn't special, and fungible means interchangeable or flexible. So we've decided to call these things tokens. We could have given them another name, but we just collectively, it's like, why do we call the cloud? I don't know. It's just what we decided to call it. Don't get caught up on how good is the term cloud. Understand what it is.
And so until recently, these things have been ideas. They've been, concepts that people have been assigning to different digital assets that who knew if they have a real value. But no, for the non-fungibles, yeah, who knew if they would real value. But recently, they've been making a crossover into, IRL, in real life, right? So what we have now is the first real estate NFT. This is a house. It's a very, very unique house. I mean, it's called, what do they call it? The Edersheim residence. It's a 9,000 square foot home in Westchester, New York. It was built in 1958 by famous architect Paul Rudolph, and who also was involved in the redesign and the development and some additions and things like that. Bottom line here is it hit the market last year for $4.6 million as a normal real estate sale. And whether it was pulled off because it wasn't getting eyeballs or because of the pandemic closures or whatever, it didn't sell. So it's been relisted for $6.4 million.
So it was 4, now 6.
Yeah. And so here's the big difference between an NFT sale and the sale through a normal brokerage or, a normal real estate sale. The difference is that when you're selling the NFT, it's the actual token that is the representation of ownership. And it's secured by a blockchain, which means everything involved with that transaction and that token is recorded and follows the token with millions and millions and millions of duplicate transactions being recorded across computers across the world in a manner that is very, very secure, just because it is so remotely held. You might have 1,000 computers with 1,000, identical records. And so what you have now is you have real estate changing hands as an NFT in a totally different type of transaction.
Has this closed yet? Or
it just was listed on April 8th. So
they relisted it as an NFT.
And you would think that in something in a transaction like this, the first transaction you would go through as a normal real estate transaction where you'd get title insurance and you would make sure that everything was above board. But after that, you've got this clean token that can record any kind of mortgage on the house, any kind of liens or taxes or dispute against the owner could even come into play with something like this. And, you could know in an instant whether this is a saleable, free and clear property, which brings us to our last slide of the day. Where are we going here? The last slide is,
we got to get you down.
Here's how it fits together. All right. Here's how it fits together. You want me to connect the pieces, or are you going to do this?
No. I want you to connect your other screens so that you're back to rocking 3 or 4 screens at once. So that you think you miss it. Us, dear listeners, definitely miss it.
We're getting closer. We're getting closer every day, Judah. All right.
Yep. Go ahead, Josh.
We're putting all 3 stories together. Part number 1 is the computer. The computer, it revolutionized our world. It made everything better and easier, and it also eliminated industries. We talked about the cell phone or the payphone industry, but there are many, many, many other industries that were completely eliminated because of computing. And with them came jobs and expertise that are no longer valued in our society, right? So now we have the story of Tom and Mary. They go to buy a house. This is the current status of our real estate transaction, where an A-B transaction where you have a willing buyer and willing seller that are both qualified and willing to move forward. You have a situation where you have to have 10 to 12 people involved in a transaction that is that simple and clear cut. And it is necessary. I think we can all recognize it in today's world. But it begs the question, what if? What if we had a world where we knew that the title was clear? We already knew what our property was worth because all of the information about sales and data is freely available at an instant, right? We know whether the property has encumbrances, whether the seller has encumbrances. We know whether you could even tie this into home inspection reports and construction and maintenance. I mean, you've got right now.
That's good. Yeah. Right? Because you could have any and all maintenance calls ever on that property, any and all everything that's been done to it.
Right. And so now you have a Carfax for a house. And and I know that in many neighborhoods, the difference between a really great property that you'd run out and buy for $100,000 and the house that you would probably not even touch for $1, they're in the same neighborhood. The difference is how well they're maintained. Did that roof leak for 10 years and 2 of the beams are rotted out? Now the thing's collapsing, or did they take care of it in the first call? And these are things that they could be blended into a really an environment where everything about the house is tracked on the token. And ultimately, your security about buying the home is provided from the seller because all of the data is held remotely and all in one place.
Yep.
I mean, I think that this is the personal computer for the real estate industry. This is the thing that, and it's going to transform other aspects of life, but within real estate, this frees the whole transaction. It simplifies it and it cleans it up.
Yeah, it definitely gets us to a point where we see how much more can be eliminated. Yeah. And we start to eliminate a lot of those things, and then that brings just a whole bunch of, number one, disruption to the industry, but then also it adds a whole bunch of efficiencies, right? So once the computer led to online buying, selling, and ordering, we saw prices of many goods come down. The whole reason why somebody can go to a grocery store and buy a spice packet mix for $2 and sell it on Amazon for 5 or 6 or 7 because somebody someplace else wants to buy it for that is because of the efficiencies that are added and the inefficiencies that happen sometimes in the retail market. So when we look at the real estate market, the big part of the reason why real estate sometimes has the value that it does is because of the illiquidity of real estate. This could add a whole lot of liquidity to real estate. And as we see the world shrink, one of the things that we always say is real estate is location, 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 right? What's implied with that is this location over here has more value than this location over here. Well, if because of the digital age, locations are getting closer and when the size of the world is getting smaller, I think what you're going to see is markets like central Pennsylvania, values going up because markets like New York and Los Angeles and DC, values are going to come down, and there's going to be a normalization coming together of values because location is going to be less of an importance and there's going to be more liquidity. So I think there's like multiple facets at play here that are going to be really interesting to see what happens in the real estate world moving forward.
Well, and Judah, imagine a foreclosure on a property where that, okay, this person is either taking care of the house, because you can look at the service record on the token, right? Or that they're not taking care of the house. And if that's the case, that can be reflected in your decision to foreclose or do a deed in lieu, or that could actually eliminate.
Oh, you're talking about as a lender, you could decide, do I want to foreclose? Don't I want to foreclose? Is this person taking care of it? Aren't they taking care of it? Is my asset really deteriorating very quickly here, and I need to pull some leverage here quicker than others? That actually makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, and now the deed in lieu is a lot less scary because you're taking back an asset that you actually know the title condition. The whole benefit of the foreclosures is it wipes everything that's not paid off. But with a deed in lieu, if you knew that there was nothing to pay off or you knew what those numbers were, you could make a much more educated decision on it. So Anyway, this is kind of cool stuff. Every day, I feel like we stumble over new technology that's like changing the way we live.
As I've said before, and will continue to say on this show again, the future is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So
always is. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us today. We will be back here next week. You have a great weekend. Until then, go make some money, and we'll see you soon. See you guys.
See everybody.